Hello, I'm David Potter with Americans for Limited Government. With over $6 trillion borrowed and printed for COVID, with inflation still very high, and the possibility of a recession in 2023 or 2024, the White House has indicated that it refuses to negotiate on discretionary spending budget caps. Watch this clip of Karine Jean-Pierre and let's discuss it.
The debt limit. Republicans want to cut spending as part of a debt limit deal. Is the president willing to cut any spending as part of a debt limit deal? And what would he be willing to cut?
Look, as you've heard us say before, we will not be doing any negotiation over the debt ceiling. But broadly speaking, at the start of this new Congress, we're reaching out to all the members through the Office of Leg Affairs, making sure that we have those connections with those new members, as I just stated. But I want to say, like in the past, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, there's been a bipartisan cooperation when it comes to lifting the debt ceiling, and that's how it should be. That's how it should continue. It's not and should not be a political football. This is not political gamemanship, and this should be done without conditions, and that's how we see this process moving forward.
When you say that there'll be no negotiating, you will not negotiate anything involving spending?
What we're saying is that this should be done without conditions. In the past, we have seen this. We have seen both Republicans and Democrats come together to deal with this issue. It is one of the basic items that Congress has to deal with, and it should be done without conditions. So there's going to be no negotiation over it. This is something that must get done.
Do you have a position on how high the debt limit should be raised?
I don't have a position on that. What I can say more broadly, what I'm saying is that more broadly speaking, not going to get into the specifics of that. What I can say is that we believe when it comes to the debt limit, it has been done in a bipartisan way over the years and decades, and it should be done in a bipartisan way, and it should be done without conditions. That is important here.
Did you hear Karine contradict herself? She stated that there will be no negotiating, and she also stated that this should be a bipartisan effort. Well, the United States federal legislative branch is a bicameral system. The House and the Senate must come together to negotiate to pass legislation to get it to the desk of the president. And it's not like this is an unprecedented ask or that this hasn't worked well in the past for the sake of fiscal sanity. The Budget Control Act of 2011 substantially reduced the deficit. It was $1.3 trillion in 2011. It was reduced all the way down to $441 billion in 2015. And with a recession possibly looming in the future, this is the really important time to slash the budget in case the government decides it wants to spend money to stimulate the economy in case there is a future recession. And we should take a pause and think about all the things we're spending money on. Here is what Speaker McCarthy has to say.
Mr. Speaker, what are you going to do about the debt ceiling?
Well, as we hit this statutory debt limit once again, I do think it's worth a moment to pause and look, how did we get here? And first of all, Maria, there is no doom right today. The hundreds of billions of dollars the government currently has, we won't hit our debt limit to really this summer. So let's take a moment and realize, why did we get here? I mean, if you look just in the last 4 years that Democrats were in the majority, they increased discretionary spending by 30%. When Republicans were in majority for the 8 years prior, they didn't increase it by $1. So that's $400 billion a year we spend more. In the last 2 years, they have taken us from spending $4 trillion to $7 trillion. They have added $10 trillion in the next 10 years. We are now going to have deficits for $1 trillion a year for as long as the eye can see. So what I really think we would do is treat this like we would treat our own household. If you had a child, you gave them a credit card, and they kept hitting the limit, you wouldn't just keep increasing it. You'd first see, what are you spending your money on? How can we cut items out? Every government has to do this. Every state has to balance their budget, county, city. For the White House to say they won't even look at it, that they can't find one penny out of $1 of eliminating waste, I think they're just trying to put us into bankruptcy. What I am saying, and it's my conversation with the president on our first conversation, let's sit down together. Let's look at the places that we can change our behavior. The first thing I would say is, why don't you make the House and the Senate both produce a budget? They don't produce a budget, so you know they're wasting money. Why don't you say the House and Senate both have to do appropriation bills? The Senate didn't even do appropriation bills, and then 2 senators wrote a $1.7 trillion bill right before Christmas that no one could read. Are you going to tell me there's no waste in that?
Yeah.
Why don't we look at, this is hardworking taxpayers' money.
Right, and I
we
understand
can find
that.
and eliminate those things. That's all we're saying. Let's sit down and change our behavior for the good of America, because what we're going to do is bankrupt this country and bankrupt these entitlements if we don't change our behavior today.
Wow, the House and the Senate creating a budget in addition to the executive branch? Sounds like common sense to me. The American people have to produce budgets, balanced budgets, to remain stable in their homes. The federal government should have to do it as well, and the Democrats should come to the table and negotiate to lower our deficit. The American people are growing tired of a government that has demonstrated they are often poor shepherds with our tax dollars. I will end with the closing words of an article from my coworker, Vice President of Public Policy, Robert Romano. You can find his full article in the description of this video. For House Speaker McCarthy, this creates an opportunity for the majority to vote on amendments that can reduce the size and scope of government. There aren't too many must-pass pieces of legislation, and so this is a very big test for the new House Republican majority to, if only temporarily, restore fiscal sanity in Washington, D.C., especially before any recession happens to worsen, and then the reverse pressure will be to increase spending, especially if unemployment begins rising. If they don't cut spending now, they might not get a chance to later. So we hope that they will come to negotiations to lower the budget. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you're on YouTube, follow if you are on the other platforms, and we will be bringing you more limited government news, advocating for limited government, and restoring the U.S. Constitution.